My name is Ross King, and the book is called Mad Enchantment, Claude Monet and the Painting of the Water Lilies. You know, I should have kept I've sometimes thought I should have kept a diary of some of my research for various of my books. I should have kept track of how many times I've climbed the dome in Florence, how many times I've been in the Sistine Chapel, and so forth. I think it's going to be very difficult to make a calculation of how many Monet paintings I've seen, especially since a couple of years ago I was at the Grand Palais exhibition in Paris, which had, I think, at least 200 of his paintings on show. I've seen many of them multiple times, but it's always nice seeing them in different contexts, as in Toronto at the AGO with the Monet paintings, some of which I'd seen elsewhere that I now see in a different context with for example, paintings by the Group of Seven in the same room or in adjoining rooms, and all of them put in that similar context of spirituality. I have to say, with the research on this book, the joy wasn't merely going to Paris or going to Giverny or going to various art museums around Canada and the United States, but also just doing the research into his letters, reading the letters of Monet to Clemenceau and Clemenceau to Monet was an absolutely wonderful experience. They had never been translated into English, so I had to translate them, which took a good deal of time. But what was so rewarding about that was the revelations of just the intimacy between the two of them, how well they got along, how well they knew each other, and how much Monet could get under Clemenceau's skin. This man who had the hide of an alligator, nevertheless could be baited by Monet. And so it's this wonderful sort of buddy friendship, love-hate relationship at time between the two of them that really was sort of coming to life before my eyes as I was doing the research, because I was reading all of this. The other aspect of the research that I did that was hugely enjoyable was reading the French newspapers from first decade of the 20th century to 1926. I was able, and that was one of the things that allowed me to recover anecdotes which hadn't been told about Monet since they were printed in Le Figaro in 1901 or something like that. So I was able to truffle up new material and find new stories, new anecdotes about Monet that I could then pass on. And I guess one of my legacies for this book, I'm hoping, is that everyone will have a Monet story that they'll be able to tell about the food Monet liked, or Monet's relationship with Paul Cézanne, or something like that. And so really going to some of these primary sources allowed me to uncover things like that. And it was so much fun. It was really sad when it was over, and that when I was finished researching and writing it. And Monet, for me, died too soon. I could have worked on him for another couple of years quite happily. One thing that you're always aware of as an historian is that you can be duped by history, or you can be duped by your subject, who is going to tell tall tales, and once you hear them, they're very good stories, the natural reaction is that you want to tell them. And what I do, not only in this book but in my other ones as well, is to take the story and investigate it, look at it, see if it's an alternative fact or if there's some truth in it. And there are various ways of doing that, getting a kind of corroborating version of it, and just testing its plausibility. In the case of this one of the things that Monet himself said is that he spent an entire winter eating nothing but potatoes, and which is a great story, and it sort of played up Monet's poverty. And so I tell the story because Monet himself said it, but I also question it because it is a legend. Monet liked to play up how difficult things were for him as a young man. And in fact, if you go back to the particular period that he was writing about, you can quite clearly see from his letters that he's appealing to very generous friends of his, sometimes painters who came from wealthy backgrounds, who got begging letters from Monet, and they were funding him. And so I think it's highly unlikely he ever had to spend a winter eating potatoes. But I guess that alternative fact then gets its own truth, which this is how Monet saw himself. This is the image that he was creating of himself. And so I think it's important to give that image, but then also to puncture it and to say that it's not a true image. It tells us something about Monet, but what it tells the true story isn't the potatoes, the true story is the way Monet saw himself as an underappreciated artist. And it's a great story, so it's always fun to tell. My name is Ross King, author of Mad Enchantment, Claude Monet, and the Painting of the Water Lilies.